if you're tired of battling yourself in your own mind, if you're exhausted from overthinking, comparing, criticizing, and carrying the emotional weight of never feeling like enough, this video is for you. By the end of this video, I want you to walk away with language, strategies, and hope. Have you ever noticed that sometimes the meanest voice in your life is your own? Not the boss, not the ex, not the spouse, not the woman on social media who seems to have it all together, but the voice in your own head that says, you're not good enough. You always mess things up. You should be further along by now. What is wrong with you? And the hardest part is because that voice has been with you for so long, you may not even question it anymore. You may have started believing that this is just how you are. Hard on yourself, critical, never satisfied, always pushing, always doubting. But I want to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me when I say that. This voice is not the truth. It's just a pattern. It's a pattern that you've learned along the way, and it can be changed. So if you're tired of battling yourself in your own mind, if you're exhausted from overthinking, comparing, criticizing, and carrying the emotional weight of never feeling like enough, this video is for you. Today, we're going to talk honestly about negative self-talk in women, where it comes from, why it hurts so deeply, and how it silently shapes your life. And most importantly, how to stop it. Not with fake positivity, not with just love yourself cliches, but with real tools, real awareness, and real healing. So take a breath and stay with me. Because by the end of this video, I want you to walk away with language, strategies, and hope. Negative self-talk is one of the most common emotional struggles women deal with, and yet it is so normalized that many women don't even recognize how severe it is. It can sound like, I'm failing, I'm too much, I'm not enough, I should have done better, I'm behind, I look terrible, no one cares. If I make one mistake, everything falls apart. And what makes it even more painful is that this voice often shows up in private. Other people may see a capable, beautiful, successful, dependable woman, but internally, you may be living under constant criticism. So today, I want to talk to you like someone who cares about you deeply, but also like someone who understands the psychology behind this, because negative self-talk is not random. It's not a weakness, and it's not just being emotional. It is a mental habit shaped by experiences, beliefs, environment, and repeated internal patterns. And once you understand that, you stop blaming yourself for having that voice, and you start learning how to change the conversation. So let's start with the pain point, because I never want to skip past what this actually feels like. Negative self-talk is exhausting. It affects how you wake up in the morning. It affects how you look in the mirror. It affects how you perform at work. It affects how you parent, how you love, how you set boundaries, and how you receive compliments, how you handle mistakes, and how you move through your life. When negative self-talk is running the show, every little thing becomes evidence against you. If someone doesn't text back, you think, I must have said something wrong. If you make a mistake at work, you think, I'm incompetent. If your body changes, you think, man, I've let myself go. And if you're tired, overwhelmed, or emotional, you think, why can't I handle this better? And this is where I want you to pause and say something important. Women are often taught to be hyper aware of how they are perceived. From a young age, many girls are conditioned to monitor themselves constantly. Am I pretty enough? Am I polite enough? Am I doing too much? Am I not doing enough? Am I lovable? Am I successful? Am I desirable? Am I a good mother, a good daughter, a good partner, a good friend, a good woman? That's exhausting. That constant self-monitoring easily becomes self-criticism. So if you struggle with negative self-talk, it doesn't mean you're broken. It may mean you have been surviving under pressure for a very long time. And maybe no one ever taught you how to speak to yourself with a little compassion, a little softness. Negative self talk is the internal dialogue that criticizes, shames, doubts, or diminishes you. It can be loud and obvious or subtle and constant. Sometimes it sounds harsh, like, "Ugh, I'm so stupid. Ugh, I'm just disgusting. I ruin everything." And sometimes it sounds more socially acceptable, such as, "I just need to do better. I can't relax until everything is perfect. I'm probably overreacting. I shouldn't feel that way. It's fine. I'll just get over it. I'll handle it." But underneath all of that, there's often the same message. My needs don't matter. My mistakes define me. I'm only acceptable when I perform, please, achieve, or appear in control. That is why negative self talk is so powerful. It doesn't just affect your mood, it affects your identity, who you feel, and who you think you are. When repeated enough, it becomes your lens that you look through at life. You stop hearing thoughts as thoughts and start experiencing them as facts. And that's where healing begins. When you realize that not every thought deserves your trust, not that every thought is actual truth. So let's talk about where this comes from because understanding the root helps remove the shame. Negative self talk can come from so many places. Sometimes it comes from childhood experiences. If you grew up around criticism, emotional neglect, high expectations, unpredictability, or a lack of affirmation, you may have internalized the belief that love must be earned and mistakes are dangerous. Sometimes it can come from social conditioning. Women are constantly given conflicting messages. Be ambitious, but not intimidating. Be confident, but not arrogant. Be attractive, but make it look effortless. Be selfless, but successful. Be available, but have your boundaries. Be nurturing, but independent. These contradictions create pressure, and pressure often becomes self judgment. Sometimes it can come from trauma and survival. Sometimes neglect, sometimes negative self talk is actually a survival strategy. If you learned early that being perfect kept you safe, accepted, and less criticized, then your inner critic may have developed as a form of protection. It may sound cruel, but its job has been if I criticize myself first, maybe I can avoid being hurt by others. Sometimes it can come from comparison culture. Social media has intensified self criticism. You are constantly seeing curated versions, perfect versions of other women's beauty, success, relationships, their homes, their bodies, and even their lifestyles. Even when you know intellectually that it isn't the full truth, emotionally, it can still trigger feelings of inadequacy. Sometimes it can come from unhealed disappointments. When women carry unresolved grief, betrayal, rejection, burnout, or disappointment, that pain often gets turned inward. Instead of saying, "That hurt me," they say, "What's wrong with me?" And that shift is devastating. So let's be honest about the cost of negative self talk. Negative self talk does not motivate you in a healthy way, it drains you. And some women believe if I stop being hard on myself, I'll become lazy. But in reality, harsh self talk usually creates one of two outcomes: chronic anxiety and overperformance, or exhaustion, avoidance, and shutdown. Because when your inner world is unsafe, everything feels heavier. Negative self talk can lead to low self esteem, anxiety, depression, perfectionism, people pleasing, procrastination, low body image, struggles, staying in unhealthy relationships. It can create a fear of visibility, fear of failure, difficulty in just resting, difficulty in setting boundaries, and difficulty in receiving love. It can also disconnect you from your own joy because when your mind is always scanning for flaws, it becomes hard to be present enough to enjoy your own life. And that is why this matters so much. This isn't just about thinking nicer thoughts. This is about reclaiming your peace, your confidence, and your voice, and your emotional safety. The first step to changing negative self talk is awareness. You cannot change a pattern that you don't even notice. So I want you to start catching the voice in real time. When you feel a wave of shame, anxiety, irritation, insecurity, or heaviness, just pause for a minute and ask, what did I just say to myself? This question is powerful because negative self talk is often automatic. It happens so fast, you only feel the emotional impact, not the sentence that caused it. For example, you look in the mirror and suddenly you feel defeated. Pause. What did you say to yourself? Maybe it was, "Oh, you look awful." You make a mistake in an email and you feel panicked. Pause and say, what did I just say to myself? Maybe it was, you can't do anything right. You see another woman thriving and suddenly you feel small. Take a pause and ask, what did I just say to myself? Maybe it was, she's doing it better. You're behind. You see, awareness slows the spiral. And I want you to understand your goal. It is not to judge yourself for the negative thought. Your goal is to notice it because noticing is the beginning of freedom. Once you catch the thought, the next thought is to stop identifying with it. Just because you thought something doesn't mean that it's true. Just because it sounds familiar does not mean it's wise. Just because it is loud does not mean it's accurate. One of the most healing shifts you can make is changing a thought of, I'm a failure, to, I'm having a thought that I'm a failure. That small change creates space. It reminds you, I am not that thought. I am the person noticing that thought. This matters because negative self talk wants fusion, it wants you to merge with it completely. The healing begins when you say, that was just a thought. That's just a pattern. That is an old script. That is not the truth about me. You don't have to argue aggressively with every thought. Sometimes just naming it as a thought is enough. That was self criticism. That was shame. That was comparison. That was perfectionism talking. There is power in language. Now, let's go just a little bit deeper. Once you notice the thought and you create some distance, ask, is this actually true? And I don't mean in a vague way. I mean, really examine it. If the thought is, I always mess everything up, ask, always? Everything? Is that really true? And if the thought is, no one cares about me, ask, no one? Is that factual? Or is that how I feel right now? If the thought, I'm so behind in life, ask yourself, behind according to who? If the thought is, I'm not enough, ask yourself, what does enough even mean? And who taught me that definition? Negative self talk loves exaggeration. Always, never, everyone, no one, ruined, hopeless, disgusting, worthless. These are emotional words, not objective truth. And this is not about invalidating your pain. It's about preventing pain from turning into your identity, who you think you are. You can feel insecure without concluding you are unworthy. You can feel disappointed without concluding you are a failure. You can feel hurt without concluding you're unlovable. That is a major shift. This is where many people get stuck because they think the only alternative to self criticism is fake positivity. It's not. You do not need to jump from I'm terrible at everything to, oh, I'm amazing and perfect. That won't feel believable. Instead, replace harshness with grounded truth. For example, instead of I'm a bad mom, try, gosh, I'm so overwhelmed and I care so much. I can support myself and still grow. Instead of I look awful, try, I'm having a hard body image day, but my body is not my enemy. Instead of I failed, try that didn't go the way I wanted, but one moment does not define me. Instead of I'm so emotional, I'm just too emotional, try my feelings are real and I can respond to them with compassion. Instead of I should be further along, try my path does not need to look like anyone else's to be valid. The goal is not to sound perfect. The goal is to sound honest and kind because healing language needs to be believable. Speaking to yourself like someone you love is one of the most powerful tools. Ask yourself, would I say this to a friend that I love? If your friend came to you crying, overwhelmed, feeling bad, ashamed of her body, afraid she just wasn't enough, would you say, yeah, you really are a failure? Would you say, yeah, you really are failing? You do ruin everything. You should be ashamed. No wonder people leave. Of course not. You would probably say something like, you're just having a hard time. You're doing better than you think. You know, what's going on doesn't define you right now. It's not who you are. You just deserve some kindness too. You don't have to carry this alone. I'm here for you. So, why should your internal voice be more brutal than the way you would speak to someone you love? And I know for some women, this question is emotional because they realize they have been deeply loyal to everyone except themselves. So, let me say this gently: self compassion is not self indulgence. It is emotional responsibility. It is creating an inner environment where growth is actually possible. Now is the time to stop feeding comparison. We cannot talk about negative self talk in women without talking about comparison. Comparison is one of the fastest way to trigger self criticism. You see another woman's career, body, relationship, motherhood, confidence, home, or beauty, and suddenly your own life seems smaller. But comparison is built on incomplete information. You are comparing your internal reality to someone else's external presentation. You know your doubts, your losses, your insecurity, your mess, your private struggles. You do not know the full truth of hers. So when comparison shows up, try saying, her life is not proof that I'm failing. Her beauty does not distract from mine, and her success does not cancel my path to success. You see, you can't admire someone without abandoning yourself. That's maturity. That is emotional health. That is freedom. And sometimes you stop negative self talk. You need to reduce the environments that trigger it. That may mean unfollowing social media accounts that make you feel worse. It's okay to unfollow people. It's okay to take breaks from social media, being mindful of who you spend your time with, noticing which conversations leave you feeling inadequate. That's important when you look at your social media feed. If when you get on social media, you feel worse about where you are based on others' pictures and their highlight reels, it may mean it's time to disengage from those people by unfollowing. You see, your mind matters, and it's important that you protect it. Sometimes negative self talk is not just mental, it may also affect you physically. If your nervous system is dysregulated, if you are exhausted, overstimulated, undersupported, burned out, anxious, sleep deprived, your body is more likely to turn against you. And that's why healing's negative self talk is not only about mindset, it is also about regulating the effects on your physical body. When you notice yourself spiraling, try slow, deep breathing, placing a hand on your chest, unclenching your jaw, relaxing your shoulders, standing up and stretching, or stepping outside for fresh air, taking a drink of water, or taking a short walk. All of that lowers the stimulation for a few minutes. These sound simple, but they matter because when your body feels under threat, your mind will often generate more critical thoughts about yourself. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can ask is not, what is wrong with me, but what do I need right now? That question can change everything. Did you know that negative self talk survives by repetition? So, one of the best ways to weaken it is to build new evidence. I often encourage women to keep what I call a truth file or an evidence file. This is just a journal, maybe some notes in your phone or a dedicated notebook. Write down every compliment you receive, every moment that you felt brave, times you handled something well, proof of your resilience, things that you like about yourself, kind messages from people, accomplishments, even small ones, ways that you showed up for yourself. Now, why does this help? Because when your mind says you never do anything right, you can go back and say, that's not true. And here is the proof. When your mind says no one appreciates you, you can look at memories, messages, and moments that tell a different story. We are not collecting evidence to inflate your ego. We're collecting evidence to correct our own distorted view of ourselves, and that is healing. We also have to be careful with perfectionism. A lot of negative self talk in women is actually perfectionism in disguise. It sounds like I should have done more. I should be better by now. I should have handled that perfectly. I need to fix myself before I can relax. And if I'm not exceptional, I'm failing. Perfectionism is seductive because it sounds productive, but underneath it is often fear of judgment, rejection, failure, fear of just not being enough. Because no matter what you do, it moves the standard. So if you struggle with negative self talk, ask yourself, am I trying to improve or am I trying to earn worth? Because those are not the same thing. You are allowed to grow, you're allowed to evolve, you're allowed to have goals, but your worth cannot be dependent on constant achievement. You do not have to become flawless to be loved, and you do not have to be endlessly productive to deserve a rest. You do not have to be perfect to be valuable. Here's the truth. Negative self talk usually does not disappear in one breakthrough moment. It changes through repetition, through catching one thought, replacing one sentence, taking a breath, and showing yourself an act of grace. Maybe just choosing a kinder response to yourself and then doing it again tomorrow. Healing is not dramatic most of the time, it is daily. And I want to say this because many women give up too soon. They think I'm still having negative thoughts, so it must not be working. No, that's not failure. That's just practice. The goal was not to never have a critical thought again. The goal is to stop letting it lead your life. Maybe right now your inner critic speaks 90% of the time and your compassionate voice speaks 10%. With practice, you can change it. It can become 70-30 and then 50-50. And then one day, the critical voice becomes a background noise instead of your identity. That is real progress. I want to share a gentle reality check with you. I also want to say this with care. If your negative self talk is intense, constant, rooted in trauma, or connected to anxiety, depression, eating struggles, abuse, or deep shame, support can be incredibly helpful. Therapy, coaching, support groups, faith based counseling, trauma informed care, these things matter. You do not have to heal alone. Sometimes women stay trapped because they think, I should be able to fix this myself. But healing is not a test of independence. It is okay to need support. It is okay to be witnessed and to let other people see your struggles. It's okay to learn new tools from someone trained to help. Asking for help is not weakness, it's wisdom. So if you take nothing else from this video, take this. The voice in your head can change. You are not doomed to spend the rest of your life at war with yourself. You are not meant to live under constant criticism. You are not too broken, too late, too emotional, or too far gone. Negative self talk may have been with you for years, and it may feel very familiar. It may even feel protective, but familiar does not always mean healthy, and protective does not mean permanent. You can learn a new way to speak to yourself, a way that is honest but not cruel, a way that is accountable but not shaming, and a way that supports your growth instead of sabotaging your peace. And if no one has told you this lately, let me say it so you can hear it. You deserve an inner voice that does not bully you. That's right, bully you. And sometimes that's what we create for ourselves. You deserve rest from the constant pressure, bullying, critical words, and critical thoughts. You deserve compassion while you're still becoming who you want to become. You deserve to feel safe inside your own head. So, starting today, I want you to notice that voice. Start questioning it, interrupt it, replace it, and keep practicing. Because the way you speak to yourself matters. And healing that voice may be one of the most powerful things you ever do. If this video spoke to you, I want you to do one thing after this video. Write down one negative belief you've been carrying about yourself, and then write a kinder, truer response to it. Start there. Small shifts become deep healing. And if this message helped you, share it with another woman who might need it too, because so many women are silently carrying this pain, and they need to know they're not alone. I'll see you on the next video.